The best super hatch you can buy right now is this Mercedes-AMG A45 S. Whoa!
Yep, there's a brand new RS3. It has a 5-cylinder engine, 400 horsepower and a £52,000 asking price. If any car can knock the 421 horsepower, £58,000 A45 S off its super hatch perch, this Audi must be it. Remember to head over to PistonHeads.com after watching this video to research and buy your next car.
But we'll come back to the RS3 in a moment. We first have to remind ourselves why the A45 S has been at the top of the super hatch tree since it arrived in 2020. The long and short of it is, this car is really good to drive. It's exciting, it's fast. With more than 400 horsepower in what's still a relatively compact car, this thing flies. It's such a rocket. Four-wheel drive as well, of course, so it's got loads of traction. Cross-country pace is just wild in this thing. The four-wheel drive system makes it feel completely planted, and perhaps in the wet on a very low grip road surface you might be able to make it slide a little bit, but in the dry it just grips and goes. This is a razor sharp car, almost sort of edgy. Actually, it's quite neurotic. You feel it in the steering. It's so sharp, so reactive. It's not a laid back kind of car at all. So it has this very distinct AMG character, quite highly strung. Even in the softest of the 3 damper modes, actually the ride is pretty good. It's not tough, it's not crashy, but there's always some tension in it. The engine is so strong, it's responsive as well, it's torquey, it's got a really wide power band. Given it's a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo, it's so strong. And from in the cabin, it sounds fantastic, I have to say. For a 4-pot, I guess a lot of that is being piped in, augmented through the speakers, but when it sounds that good, I don't mind at all. Gearbox is quick, 4-wheel drive system gives it all the traction in the world. Oh, it's just a exciting live wire of a car. The chassis is good, it deals with a bumpy road surface really well, but then there's ironclad body control, bundles and bundles of grip, and good balance as well. It loves to tuck into a corner. And then the rear end is right there with you. Yeah, it's fantastic to drive this thing. If that RS3 is going to be better than this A45 S, the Audi is going to have to be a blinding car.
The Mercedes interior is more cool and clinical than warm and cosseting. Its twin digital displays look the part, and so do the heavily bolstered seats, which are actually quite firm. You know you've been sat in these chairs. This is a good cabin for a hatchback, and the build quality and material quality are fine, but this is a near £60,000 car. I'd expect plusher materials for that sort of money. Mind you, the same applies to the Audi. It isn't quite as powerful as the Mercedes, but it does have 5 cylinders rather than 4, and it sounds a whole lot better because of it.
It sounds fantastic, and if I press this button here to choose RS mode, oh, can you hear that? It goes all burbly, and actually just sitting here at idle, it's really quite loud, although I like the sound of it a lot. As we'll find out, it sounds even better on the move, but before we do that, it's worth just having a little poke around this cabin. It's all quite high quality, it's pretty well screwed together. This probably isn't the cabin for you if you don't like shiny black plastic. The trouble is, the way this car is spec'd up, it costs almost £70,000. And for me, this interior, nice as it is, just doesn't justify that kind of money. However, the seating position is good. I feel like I'm sat nice and low. The Mercedes has got quite firm, thinly padded chairs that really grip you. These are nice and soft. They're more like squidgy armchairs. The infotainment system is just so easy to use. If you can use a smartphone, you can use this without any trouble whatsoever. Overall then, a pretty good cabin at £52,000. At close to 70, I'm not convinced. Ooh, I have to start by talking about this RS3's engine. This 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo. It's been around seemingly forever, and it's served in loads of different Audis. It's a proper old warhorse, but it's fantastic. Power really hasn't risen at all over recent years, still 400 horsepower. Torque though is up to 369 pound-foot, a little bit more torque than before. It's still not much really though, is it, for such a big engine? The whole point about having 5 cylinders is that you get this lovely offbeat soundtrack. It's nowhere near as loud within the cabin as the Mercedes is, but in this Audi you get a much richer, more sort of tuneful soundtrack. And you know it's authentic as well, it's not being faked. This engine needs at least 3,000 RPM before it does anything at all. But after that point, you've just got bundles of torque, such strong mid-range, and then it pulls to the red line as well. It's just a brilliant engine. Good snappy gearbox as well. Masses of performance. Yeah, I'm so pleased that Audi has somehow found a way to keep this engine alive.
This latest model runs more camber at the front, and instead of a conventional rear differential, it has a pair of multi-disc clutch packs that distribute torque between the rear wheels with much more precision. Audi calls it a torque splitter. There's a drift mode if you like that sort of thing, but this is a much more sophisticated torque vectoring four-wheel drive system than the kind you'd find in any earlier RS3.
All of which means this new RS3 drives so much better than any previous model. Let's start with the ride. Previous RS3s have had brittle, bony, uncomfortable rides. This one is so much better. Actually, this particular test car has got £1,000 worth of optional adaptive dampers. Money well spent, because the ride is lovely. It's plush, it's smooth, it's composed, comfortable. Yeah, in that sense, this is a far more comfortable car than the AMG. So the ride is a good step forward, but the steering, the handling, the balance, oh my word, night and day compared to any previous RS3. Night and day. It's leaps and bounds ahead, this car. It's brilliant fun to drive. It steers well. It doesn't have the hyperactive steering of the AMG. It's more measured. But it's so sharp and so responsive. You don't feel like there's a load of weight over the nose anymore like you did in previous RS3s. This one is balanced and it's alert and agile. This car has got several £1,000s worth of carbon ceramic brakes. I don't know who's speccing carbon ceramics on their RS3, but you can have them if you like. They're strong and they haven't got anywhere close to fading on this mountain road. But I think the thing that's really improved in terms of the way this car drives, apart from the ride, apart from the steering, is the balance. It doesn't just understeer now. It holds a line beautifully. All that talk about the torque splitter, it's not nonsense. You feel it, you really feel it. When you drive away from the corner, it sends the power to the outside rear wheel, and that gets you out of the bend so sweetly. You feel that happening. It's so much more satisfying than just feeling a front-biased four-wheel drive system scrabbling away at the front. It's really interesting to compare the seats in this car to the Mercedes-AMGs, because the seats tell you a lot about these cars' actually very different characters. These seats in the RS3, they're soft, they're squishy, they're comfortable, perhaps not as supportive as they can be. The AMGs, they're thinly padded, they're quite firm, they're not that comfy, but they do clamp you in position really well. And that reveals a great deal about the character of these two cars. This RS3 is slightly softer edged, a bit more of a Grand Tourer, probably better to use every day because of it. The AMG is a bit harder edged, a bit more like a dedicated sports car. So if the driving experience, the rawness, the sort of intensity of the driving experience is all that matters to you, I think it's got to be the Mercedes-AMG A45 S. However, because these are everyday cars, and because this RS3 has that 5-cylinder engine, and because it's so much better than any previous RS3, I think I'd be going home in the Audi.
At long last, the Audi RS3 is a cracker. Thank you for watching this PistonHeads video. Please remember to give us the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.